US government just proposed banning vintage cars by 2025. That's right, your beloved classics could be outlawed. This bold move has sparked outrage, raising questions about freedom, history, and the future of car culture. Why now? And what's really behind this controversial decision? Could this be the end of an era for collectors? Stay tuned to uncover the truth behind what's happening. Imagine waking up one day to find that your beloved vintage car is no longer legal to drive. Sounds unthinkable, right? Well, that day might be closer than you think. The United States government has been considering a proposal that has left classic car enthusiasts in a state of disbelief. At its core, the proposal aims to ban vintage cars from public roads by the year 2025, citing environmental concerns as the primary motivation. This shocking move could fundamentally alter the fabric of American car culture. But how did we get here? And why is this proposal causing such an uproar? The plan, spearheaded by environmental agencies and certain policymakers, highlights the emissions from pre-modern vehicles as a significant issue in the fight against climate change. While classic cars represent a small fraction of vehicles on the road, proponents of the ban argue that their outdated technology contributes disproportionately to pollution levels. To many, however, this is not just about emissions. It feels like an attack on personal freedom and heritage. And the controversy only deepens as we dive into the reasons behind this proposal and its far-reaching implications. Let's talk about the environmental justifications that have sparked this bold proposal. Environmental justifications. Is banning classic cars really about saving the planet, or is there a bigger story behind this environmental push? Environmental advocates claim the ban on vintage cars is a necessary step to meet aggressive climate goals. With states like California leading the charge towards zero-emission policies, the federal government appears to be taking cues from these pioneering efforts. Classic cars, often built before stringent emission standards were introduced, are seen as culprits in the battle against greenhouse gases. California's Air Resources Board has been a key player in shaping these policies. By promoting zero-emission zones in urban areas, the board aims to limit the presence of gas-powered vehicles altogether. Supporters of this proposal argue that phasing out classic cars will reduce emissions and pave the way for cleaner, more sustainable transportation. But critics have pointed out glaring contradictions. While the focus is on vintage vehicles, far greater emissions are generated by private jets, cruise ships, and industrial operations. The question arises, are classic cars being unfairly targeted because they're an easy scapegoat? After all, these vehicles are typically driven only on special occasions, making their environmental impact negligible compared to everyday commuter cars. The real irony lies in the numbers. Classic cars might not even be the primary problem. If the environmental case is shaky, what about the economic impact of banning vintage cars? Economic ripples. Could a ban on classic cars be more damaging to the economy than anyone anticipated? The collector car market is a multi-billion-dollar industry in the United States. In 2020, it generated between $14 and $15 billion in revenue, supporting countless jobs across the country. From mechanics and restorers to event organizers and auction houses, the ecosystem surrounding vintage cars is vast and interconnected. Events like car shows and auctions don't just provide entertainment, they are vital economic engines for many communities. Local businesses, from hotels to restaurants, often depend on the influx of visitors these events bring. Monterey Car Week, for example, generates millions in tourism revenue annually. A ban on vintage cars could cripple this entire sector, leaving towns and businesses in financial turmoil. Furthermore, classic cars are taxed during sales, registration, and upgrades, contributing significantly to state and local revenues. Losing this source of income would leave a noticeable gap in budgets, particularly in states like California, where the automotive sector plays a pivotal role in funding public services. The ban would also affect individual collectors, many of whom have invested significant time and money into their vehicles. For some, these cars are not just hobbies, they are assets. A sudden ban could render these investments worthless, creating a ripple effect of financial losses. The numbers tell a sobering story. This isn't just about cars, it's about livelihoods. Beyond economics, classic cars hold a deeper cultural significance that cannot be overlooked. Cultural significance. Classic cars are more than just machines. They're rolling pieces of history that tell America's story. From post-war prosperity to the muscle car era, vintage vehicles have been central to American identity for decades. They are tangible reminders of innovation, artistry, and the spirit of freedom that defines the country. A ban on these cars would be like erasing chapters of history, silencing the engines that carried generations into the future. Classic cars play a prominent role in community events, from parades to educational programs for at-risk youth. They provide a hands-on way to teach mechanical skills and instill a sense of pride in craftsmanship. These vehicles are also central to car clubs, where enthusiasts gather to celebrate their shared passion and preserve automotive heritage. Consider the Rose Parade in Pasadena, where politicians and celebrities ride in beautifully restored classics, or the countless local car shows where families bond over their shared love of vintage vehicles. These events foster a sense of community and connection that goes beyond the cars themselves. The proposal to ban these icons feels like an attack on a cherished tradition. For many, it's not just about losing their cars, it's about losing a part of who they are. This is not just a policy decision, it's a cultural crossroads. But is this really about emissions, or is there something else driving this proposal? Unmasking the motivations. Is this ban really about the environment, or is there something else at play behind closed doors? When we peel back the layers of the proposal to ban vintage cars, a complex web of motivations emerges. On the surface, the stated goal is to reduce emissions and combat climate change. However, critics argue that this is merely a convenient excuse for policies rooted in control rather than conservation. The proposal is said to have been inspired by California's push for zero-emission zones, a concept similar to the ultra-low emission zones in cities like London. In these areas, vehicles that don't meet strict emission standards are either banned or subject to hefty fines. Proponents claim this is a necessary step to transition toward a greener future. However, skeptics point out that many of the policymakers pushing for such measures are frequent users of private jets, yachts, and other luxury transportation modes with far greater carbon footprints than vintage cars. Adding fuel to the fire is the fact that classic cars are largely symbolic. They represent a bygone era of American innovation and self-reliance. Critics believe these policies are not just about reducing emissions, but also about targeting a group of hobbyists who lack the political clout of industries like aviation or tech. After all, it's easier to villainize nostalgic car enthusiasts than billion-dollar corporations. But this proposal is not going unchallenged. Far from it. Let's delve into how car enthusiasts and industry leaders are rallying to protect their beloved classics. The enthusiasts strike back. When you threaten a community's passion, you spark a movement, and this one is revving up fast. The classic car community is not taking this proposal lying down. Across the United States, enthusiasts, restorers, and collectors are mobilizing to protect their rights. Online forums, car clubs, and social media platforms have become hotbeds of activity, with members sharing updates, rallying support, and strategizing their response. SEMA, the Specialty Equipment Market Association, has emerged as a key ally in the fight against the ban. Known for advocating for automotive enthusiasts, SEMA has been quick to mobilize resources, raising awareness and lobbying lawmakers to reconsider the implications of such a drastic measure. Their message is clear: classic cars are not the problem, and banning them will have negligible environmental benefits. Grassroots efforts have also gained momentum. Car rallies and parades are being organized not just as celebrations, but as statements of protest. These events highlight the cultural and economic significance of classic cars, drawing attention to the potential consequences of the proposed ban. What started as a hobby is quickly becoming a united front, a force too powerful to ignore. But it's not just enthusiasts speaking out. Lawmakers are entering the fray, and the battle is heating up. Political pushback. When classic cars became a political battleground, the stakes went from high to explosive. The proposal to ban vintage cars has ignited debates across political lines. In states like California, where the automotive industry is deeply ingrained in the culture, the backlash has been particularly intense. Republican lawmakers have voiced strong opposition, framing the ban as an attack on personal freedoms and private property rights. Representative Doug LaMalfa of Northern California has been especially vocal, calling the proposal a radical green agenda that threatens the livelihoods of countless Americans. He argues that the ban is not only unnecessary, but also hypocritical, pointing out that many of the same politicians supporting the measure often ride in classic cars during parades and public events. Surprisingly, the resistance isn't limited to one side of the aisle. Some progressive lawmakers have also expressed concerns about the economic impact of the ban. They argue that targeting classic cars, which are rarely driven and often cherished as collectibles, is an ineffective strategy for combating climate change. Instead, they advocate for policies that incentivize sustainable practices without alienating communities. The political divide over this issue reflects broader tensions in America's approach to climate policy. While some see aggressive measures as essential for progress, others view them as overreach that prioritizes symbolism over substance. This isn't just about cars anymore. It's about the future of policymaking itself. Let's take a closer look at how this controversy is playing out in the media and public discourse. Media and public reaction. In the court of public opinion, the debate over vintage cars is proving to be anything but straightforward. The media has seized on the controversy, turning it into a headline-grabbing spectacle. Conservative outlets have criticized the proposal as an overreach of government power, painting it as yet another example of California's out-of-touch policies. Progressive outlets, meanwhile, have been more divided, with some supporting the environmental goals of the ban, while others question its practicality and fairness. Public opinion, however, leans heavily toward preserving classic cars. Polls conducted in states with strong car cultures like Michigan and Texas reveal that a majority of respondents oppose the ban, citing the economic and cultural value of vintage vehicles. This growing support has emboldened enthusiasts and lawmakers alike, providing a powerful counter-narrative to the proposal. The message is loud and clear. Americans won't give up their classics without a fight. As we prepare to explore the potential fallout of this proposal, the stakes are higher than ever. The automotive industry's response. What happens when a multi-billion-dollar industry feels its foundation shaken to the core? The proposal to ban vintage cars has sent shockwaves through the automotive industry. Manufacturers, aftermarket parts suppliers, and restoration shops are all grappling with the potential consequences. Classic cars aren't just a passion for collectors, they represent a significant slice of the economic pie. In the United States, the collector car market generates billions of dollars annually. From auctions and restoration services to car shows and memorabilia sales, this ecosystem employs thousands of people. Restoration shops, often small, family-owned businesses, could face closure if demand for their services plummets. Manufacturers of aftermarket parts, many of whom rely on enthusiasts maintaining their vintage vehicles, are similarly at risk. For automakers, the stakes are more nuanced. Companies like Ford and General Motors benefit indirectly from the classic car market by maintaining their legacy and brand loyalty. A Ford enthusiast cherishing a 1965 Mustang is likely to consider a modern Ford vehicle when making their next purchase. Losing this cultural connection could erode brand equity, creating long-term challenges. The industry isn't just watching from the sidelines, it's mobilizing to defend its interests. But beyond the industry, what about the towns and communities that depend on classic car culture to thrive? The economic fallout on local communities. What happens when the engine-driving small-town economies begins to stall? The ripple effects of this proposal extend far beyond enthusiasts and businesses. Many towns and cities across the United States rely on the classic car culture for economic vitality. Car shows, auctions, and parades attract visitors who spend money on hotels, restaurants, and local shops. For some communities, these events are the cornerstone of their annual revenue. Take Monterey, California, for example. The annual Monterey Car Week, featuring prestigious events like the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, generates millions of dollars for the region. Similarly, cities like Detroit, the historic heart of the American auto industry, host events that celebrate the legacy of classic cars, drawing tourists from around the world. If vintage cars are banned or heavily restricted, the loss of these events could devastate local economies. Small towns that rely on car-centric tourism could see declines in business activity, forcing closures and layoffs. This economic impact would likely hit hardest in areas already struggling to recover from broader industrial shifts. Communities are rallying to protect their traditions, but will their voices be enough? As the controversy unfolds, it's becoming clear that the cultural stakes are just as high as the economic ones. A cultural heritage at risk. What do classic cars represent, and why is their preservation about more than just nostalgia? Classic cars are more than just vehicles. They are rolling pieces of history. From the muscle cars of the 1960s to the elegant cruisers of the 1950s, these machines tell stories about America's industrial innovation, cultural shifts, and evolving tastes. Losing them would mean erasing a tangible connection to the past. For many enthusiasts, restoring and maintaining a vintage car is a labor of love, a way to keep history alive. These vehicles also play a crucial role in education, giving younger generations a chance to learn about engineering, design, and the cultural movements that shape different eras. Car clubs often engage with schools and community groups, using their collections to teach valuable lessons about creativity and craftsmanship. But moreover, vintage cars are deeply tied to American identity. They symbolize freedom, individuality, and the open road. To many, the idea of banning these vehicles feels like an attack on these values, a move that prioritizes regulations over the spirit of innovation that defined the automotive golden age. The fight to save classic cars is about preserving more than just metal and chrome. It's about protecting a piece of who we are. But what does the future hold for classic cars? And can innovation find a way to preserve their legacy? Innovating to keep classics alive, could technology offer a lifeline for vintage cars in a world moving towards zero emissions? Amid the backlash to the proposed ban, some innovators see an opportunity to adapt rather than resist. Electric vehicle conversions for classic cars are gaining popularity, offering a way to preserve vintage designs while aligning with modern environmental goals. Companies like Zelectric and EV West specialize in retrofitting classic cars with electric powertrains, giving them a new lease on life. While EV conversions are not without challenges, costs can run into the tens of thousands of dollars, they offer a compelling solution. Enthusiasts can continue to enjoy their vehicles without fear of violating emissions regulations. Additionally, these conversions can improve performance and reliability, making vintage cars more accessible to a broader audience. Another avenue for preserving classics is the development of synthetic fuels. Companies like Porsche are investing in carbon-neutral fuels that could allow internal combustion engines to operate with minimal environmental impact. While still in the early stages, this technology offers hope for maintaining traditional powertrains without contributing to climate change. For many, these innovations represent a middle ground, a way to honor the past while embracing the future. However, widespread adoption will require support from both the government and the private sector to make these solutions affordable and practical. Innovation may hold the key to keeping classic cars on the road, but the road ahead is anything but smooth. As we prepare to examine the broader implications of this controversy, one question looms large: can the American spirit of ingenuity prevail? The political battle. Will legislators take action? When the government puts a target on classic cars, who really wins? The political implications of the proposal to ban classic cars are undeniable. As expected, California is leading the charge, with the California Air Resources Board pushing for stricter emission rules and zero emission zones. However, this isn't just a California issue. Other states are already watching closely to see how this policy develops, and the consequences could extend far beyond the Golden State. Classic car enthusiasts and business owners are gearing up for a massive fight. Advocacy groups, including the Specialty Equipment Market Association, are already mobilizing to push back against these regulations. With a passionate following, they plan to raise awareness about the economic and cultural importance of the classic car market. This includes lobbying legislators, organizing rallies, and providing information about the historical significance of these vehicles and their economic contributions. However, the question remains, will this be enough to sway policymakers? The political landscape is evolving, and while classic car enthusiasts may hold deep pockets in terms of passion, their financial resources don't necessarily match those of big corporations pushing for green policies. As the battle lines are drawn, the outcome could hinge on which side can generate the most public support. This battle is about much more than just cars. It's about protecting personal freedoms, preserving history, and ensuring future innovation. But beyond the political struggle, what will the broader implications be for car culture and future generations? The Cultural Backlash, defending the American car legacy. Can we afford to lose the heart of American car culture? The classic car movement in the United States has always been more than just a hobby. It's a culture, a lifestyle, and for many, a form of personal expression. From the first muscle car to the finely crafted roadsters of the 1950s, American cars tell the story of innovation, independence, and freedom. They are a piece of the country's cultural fabric. The prospect of banning or restricting these vehicles is not just about emissions, it's about the loss of a cherished tradition. Classic car shows, auctions, and parades are events that have drawn generations of enthusiasts, and these gatherings represent a collective celebration of American ingenuity. For millions of people, cars are not simply machines. They are symbols of freedom, adventure, and nostalgia. However, these vehicles are now under threat. The move to restrict or eliminate them could be seen as a broader attempt to silence a culture that doesn't fit neatly into the current narrative. For many, the potential ban feels like an attack on personal liberty, a government telling them how to express themselves. It also raises questions about the future of car culture. How much will be lost if these vehicles are gradually erased from the roads? It's about more than just preserving cars. It's about keeping the flame of American car culture alive. But even if classic cars are saved from the chopping block, what does the future hold for the automotive industry as a whole? The shift towards sustainability. Can cars and the planet coexist? Is there a middle ground between environmental responsibility and car culture? While the debate over classic cars rages, the automotive industry at large faces a massive transition towards sustainability. Automakers are already shifting their focus to electric vehicles as part of the global movement to reduce carbon emissions. The urgency to develop cleaner vehicles is driven by climate concerns, and many governments are pushing for greener alternatives. For traditional car lovers, this shift can be seen as an existential threat. As more automakers focus on EVs, many worry that the classic car market will become an afterthought, relegated to history. But the real question is, can the car industry evolve without erasing its past? There are promising signs that sustainability and car culture can coexist. Electric vehicle conversions for classic cars, as mentioned in earlier chapters, are gaining traction. This allows enthusiasts to retain their beloved vehicles while embracing cleaner, greener technology. Additionally, new developments in synthetic fuels could allow for the continued use of internal combustion engines without contributing to climate change. It's clear that change is inevitable, but it's possible to create a future where classic cars aren't erased. Innovation could provide a way to preserve the legacy of vintage vehicles while addressing environmental concerns. By allowing new technologies to coexist with the old, the automotive industry can move forward without losing its past. The future of the automotive industry may be green, but that doesn't mean we need to leave the past behind. With this in mind, how do we ensure that classic cars are both protected and preserved for future generations? So what can you do to save classic cars? What can we do to protect our cars and our freedom? As the movement to ban classic cars gains momentum, there is still hope. The power of public opinion can't be overstated. While the government and large corporations may have more resources, passionate enthusiasts can band together and make their voices heard. This is a fight for the preservation of history, culture, and personal freedom. One of the most effective ways to push back against these proposed regulations is through organized advocacy. Car clubs, online forums, and social media platforms have been instrumental in rallying people together. By spreading the word, signing petitions, and engaging in peaceful protests, enthusiasts can create a powerful force that demands change. If you care about preserving classic cars, it's important to take action. Reach out to your local lawmakers, attend meetings, and ensure that your voice is heard. Support organizations that are working to protect the interests of classic car owners and drive awareness about the economic and cultural value these vehicles bring. You have the power to protect classic cars, preserve history, and ensure that future generations can enjoy the freedom that comes with car culture. The fight is far from over, but together we can change the course of history. As we continue to face challenges in preserving the freedom to enjoy our classic cars, it's crucial to stay informed and take action. The future of these vehicles is in our hands. If you believe in protecting the rights of classic car owners, now is the time to speak up. We want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the proposal to ban classic cars? Do you think it's a step too far, or do you see it as part of the larger environmental movement? Let us know your opinion in the comments below. Don't forget to like and share this video to spread awareness. And if you want to stay updated on this ongoing battle, subscribe to our channel for more insights and updates on the future of classic cars.